Hi, this is Jane Leavy, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I
And
love it. I
I'm having
love
a bad hair day.
bad hair day. And look, I took my hat off just so I can share my
Like,
unshowered hair because I've been
well,
on a road trip.
okay.
I did a show earlier today in San Francisco in the Presidio at my friend's house, and now I'm in Capitola South, and so I've been on the road. So we both get to have bad hair
Wow.
today.
I went
Yeah,
nowhere today.
that's all right. That's all right. Hey, so the thing I wanted to start with you is not so much about baseball, but thank you, but you said in your book that one of your friends makes the best martini in whatever place it was. I love friends like this that like they take a passion and they truly make the best. My friend Dr. Bob Greenberg makes the best martini in Oakland, and nobody is going to beat him. And it's his passion, it's his specialty, and it's wonderful to find friends like that.
It's Daniel Okrent, excuse me, otherwise known as Dan, otherwise known as the man who created Rotisserie League Baseball and Bill James. And therefore, are we using dirty words or not?
I think we should. Shit, yeah, hell yeah,
Okay.
fuck it.
And therefore, when I said to him, "You fucked baseball," he goes, "So what?"
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your book is fantastic. Everybody, anybody who doesn't know already, Jane is a world-class baseball writer. All of her books are great. Whether you read the Babe book, the book about Sandy Mick, but also this latest one, Make Me Commissioner. So this is my ask to you: if you become commissioner, I would like to be a czar. I'd like to put the Latin back in the czar and be a Caesar. But whatever job you want, I'm glad to work, and I'll work for a very tiny amount of budget money. But we need help with people who can help us with the story part of the game because we're washing a lot of that out. And I'm going to shut up here in a second. But the thing that I see that most clearly defines this is we decided in July that Otani and Judge were going to be the MVPs this year. And that was it. There will be no discussion, no dissent. And that is not what baseball's about. By the way, season's still not over.
Right. Right. I mean, and one guy's catching, one
Yeah,
guy's playing with a hurt arm, and one guy, he never has to play the field. And he's so what he's pitched the most he's pitched is what, 5 innings, I think.
that's right.
Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's inconsiderable. Doing both things simultaneously is a big deal, and it obviously is a big deal to him. But yeah, how do you weigh that? How do you weigh that? At least we don't have to compare Otani to the two of them because separate leagues for the time
Yeah.
being. For the time being,
I look into these things. I try to figure them out. This is one of the things about baseball, and I'll say right now, and again, you're the real writer. I write about baseball quite a lot, and I'll write about a day in history or a thing, and I write about and think about MVPs quite a lot because we get messed up. So we apparently totally ignore the Hank Aaron Award for some reason, and I'm going to put that at the feet of Major League Baseball, but it is akin to the Cy Young Award. The Cy Young should rarely be the MVP, and I think the Hank Aaron should also rarely be that. So, is Aaron Judge the Hank Aaron Award winner for American League? Yeah, maybe. Is he the most valuable player though? I don't know
where
that.
would the Yankees be without him?
Right? Where would the Mariners be without him? Without Rayleigh?
Um, how's Julio doing? How's Eugenio doing since he came over? What's interesting is that Raleigh's power came out of nowhere. I mean,
Yeah,
it's one of those things. Apparently the new batting guy worked with him. Blah 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 blah. I actually have a call into Jerry DePoto to say
yeah,
what's happening. He was
yeah,
very helpful with the book, so I like him. Um, there isn't anybody in the book that I really don't like. I like
yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah. Even the driveline folks, you're critical in general of the impact, but you're not calling them bad people. It's just we've got this game that needs some tuning, and we've become enraptured by single numbers. Well, so and so's WAR is bigger than somebody else's, and Pete would say, "Hey, WAR is bad at judging durability. It's bad at judging longevity." So if I'll use Utley as an example, if he misses a third of the season, yes, his WAR was 6 that year, but there's also no negative value. Otani rehabbing in real time on the mound is a detriment to his team's success at times. Does he pitch well? Yes, but someone else has to go carry the rest of that load, and so that erodes from some of his value. So these negative values that we seem to refuse to accept, it's more of an inclusive number when you look at things this way. We struggle with this. We struggle with anybody. Here's the thing we struggle with. When we look at all these numbers we have, um, there's a bell curve of second basemen in major leagues. And if you say qualified, you cut off like 70% of the second baseman, right? Like you don't even, so they're all well above average. But we
Right.
struggle with these obvious truths.
I think that, we live in a reductive time.
Hmm.
We don't want just answers. We want the answer. And
Right.
interestingly, the guy who is most philosophical and whose judgment probably matters the most and interests me the most was Morgan Sword, who is the executive vice president of everything that happens on a baseball field. And if I'm not commissioner, I might vote for him.
Mhm.
He's a smart guy, and I liked him. I really liked him. Aside from reducing the minor leagues, I didn't like that. But he said, we live in an age where we think we can control everything, and we can't.
Yeah.
And if ever baseball offered a lesson in, humility, you think you got it aced? No, you don't.
Right.
The wind kicks up, or pebbles on the infield dirt, or the network television decides, in the case of Sandy Koufax's last pitched game, that the Dodgers have to play in the sun in Chavez Ravine, which they never do because the sun shines in the outfielders' faces, particularly Willie Davis's, and he botches 3 balls. And Koufax loses the game, and he knows his career is over, and he's going to announce it fairly soon thereafter. But Willie goes and sits by himself at the end of the bench. And Koufax goes over and puts an arm around him, and then Drysdale goes and tells the press, he's won us a lot more games than he's lost.
Right.
And it's an interesting comparison. I mean, FIP is a really interesting, brilliant distillation of pitching prowess, absent the flukes of nature and of human nature that take place on a baseball field. It's a number that Tom Tango created and it's written about in his book called The Book, which made him an analytic hero. He's a very smart guy and a nice guy. I like him. I'm barely sounding Pollyanna. I like everybody today. But the point of FIP is that it takes away the burden of everybody else's errors. But that's the thing about baseball, and therefore it's useful to an agent like Scott Boras in negotiation. Why did he lose so many games? Why do wins and losses not matter? Because the sun, the wind, the whatever, the bad teammates. So it's a very useful number in terms of monetization. But it's the antithesis of teammates.
Right.
So teammates picked each other up when they let each other down. That's what they did. That's what the Dodgers did. And with Willie, not that particular day, but that's what it was. And so, you want to draw a curve from where baseball was to where it is. That's to me, a really good way to do it.
Yeah, the other reduction, I totally agree with everything you said, is because this is a team game, and a lot of times when I look and evaluate MVPs, for example, I have like a rubric that I do. Like, did your team win? If your team lost, really hard to be valuable that day because you lost. But a number
to be valuable enough,
right? But
that's an important caveat.
Yeah, winning is more valuable than losing. How about that? And then a stat like WPA, winning percent added, well, if you lost, that still goes into your positive ledger, but your team lost. So I try to wash that out. But this is the tedious part that's fun for some of us to go through box score by box score and really look at. And all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, Freddie Freeman has had the most MVP moments on the Dodgers this year. And then you have to include Yamamoto and Kershaw and having these wonderful starts. And then because there's so much quality on on the Dodgers, the Yankees, whatever these teams are, a lot of guys are doing MVP things in a single inning and a single at bat, and that erodes away from these monolithic MVPs that we want to be there. Yes, Otani is great, and he's maybe the best player that we've talked about in 50 or who knows, right? It's all great, but if you aren't willing to do the work to really measure value, you're reducing this down to it has to be unanimous and it has to be Otani, it has to be Judge, it can't be anybody else. And that for me is too reductive. It also ignores the fact that the Brewers are a fantastic team. Are you telling me there's
They
no
are a team.
MVP? Yeah,
They are a team. And
right.
and the guy who just brought Betty the dog home. Hi, Betty the dog.
How
Here
big of a dog?
she's come to say hello. In
Yeah,
case people don't know, Betty the dog is a main character in this book, and she was just out catching balls because nothing gets by her.
right.
She's the MVP of canines, and it's not just my judgment, but anyway, I I'm not one of those people that pours through stats.
Hmm.
When I can find a stat that explains something I don't understand, even though it's usually somebody else has found it, and I go, "Oh, that's
Yeah,
like the
sure.
stat, Christian Javier in Game 4 of the 2022 World Series. When somebody explained VAA, which
Hmm.
is the opposite of launch angle. It's the angle at which your arm is moving and the ball comes in towards the plate, and how his created an optical illusion. I mean, because
Hmm.
after all, you can't really see the ball for much of the last 5 feet that you're trying to look at it.
Right.
So they're swinging at the wrong plane. They're
Hmm.
swinging at what muscle memory tells them is where a fastball should go, but his doesn't. So much of baseball is still about creating the illusion that's going to fool
Right.
somebody. And of course, apparently that played havoc with his arm because he's since undergone Tommy John surgery, one of the millions, the many. But a stat like that, when you can find a number that is that illustrative,
Hmm.
that's gold.
Yeah.
That's reportorial gold. I'm
Yeah.
not good enough at it. I mean, I know to ask the question to say to somebody, what's the best illustration of this numerically, but I'm not going to pour over the stats because I grew up watching baseball, not
Right.
memorizing stats. Guys always try to trick me. You know, what did DiMaggio do in the second to last game before the streak ended in the second
Yes.
at bat? And I'm like, I have no fucking clue.
Mm.
And you know how I find out? I do what most of us in America don't do anymore. I'd look it up,
Yeah.
not on Wikipedia or AI, chat
Sure.
GPT. They're
Yeah.
always wrong now. They're always wrong. But anyway, you know, you're not supposed to know all that stuff. You're
Mm.
supposed to know when you don't know and look it up. But okay.
Yeah, and then also, like you said, the sources matter because if I ask ChatGPT or any AI, any logarithmic machine guesser, it doesn't do math. It doesn't have a memory. I know we want it to, but the fact is, and here's the thing that and these are just stupid things that you can love in baseball, but are fascinating. Like, who is the median player all time? Like right now today, if 23,722 players, who's the middle player? And that player probably is right around 1960 because I track this sometimes. And it's just fun to go look at like their best day of their career, and I'll maybe write about that. It's just these silly things. There
That's
is
great.
no,
I love
yeah,
that. It's just
there's
not
no,
my bent of mind.
yeah, there's no AI that can tell you the answer to that, though. You just have to go do the work. And I know about where to start, but I've tried and I've tried to teach it. No, it doesn't. And the other fun thing that happens with this, and this is get right back into kind of what we both think about baseball, is that when I pull up October 15th, 1962, or whatever the day is when that player has that great moment, playoffs or regular season, and I write about it, and I quote Jim Murray, who's passed on, or any writer whose work I brought their work back to life 50, 60 years later, and I'll quote that article, and it's just neat to see the old sports writing. Baseball gives us that. And it seems like we're desperate to wash away the creativity that goes into describing what happens when Tejada basically wins the MVP when the A's win 20 games in a row. Like that's why he won that, because he was the guy over and over again late in the season during that streak, and it stood out. And so all of the writing about that era, it's wonderful. It's every writer is doing their best to describe this magic moment. And if we don't have people like you who write about these things and explain them to us so we can understand the color of your grandma's blue eyes, one of the examples you used,
Oh, thank
then
you.
we lose the stories, and those stories are critical for what we're trying to see in the game, and how you see it and how valuable it is, and how that part. The numbers are denying us that. It's reducing that down to just, oh, his WAR is 8.2. Like, okay, great, that's nice, but why?
Well, it clearly it came with the advent of television, when
Right.
TV assumed the prerogative of telling what happened at the ballpark last night because you got to watch it yourself last night, and so newspaper writers had to find something else to write about.
Right.
And yeah, you did the score and you probably did the highlights of the game, but nobody was relying on you anymore to say, this is what it looked like, this is what it felt like, this is what it smelled like. My hero, my writing hero, mentor was Red Smith, who finished his glorious career at the New York Times, a paper he reviled during his long tenure at the New York Herald Tribune. But and he would always say, you got to get the smell of the cabbage cooking in the halls. And when I teach, and I've done some of that until I get so frustrated with the lack of ability to write that I just go, you try to tell kids about specificity. Look at how Joan Didion writes. I mean, the famous story about Joan Didion, and it's in the movie that her nephew made not too long ago, is she's writing the famous essay about Haight-Ashbury. And at the very, there's a baby on the floor in this crash pad, a term of art from long ago, and the baby's doing drugs, right? Because it's a drug out crash pad. And her nephew says to her, well, what did you think when you saw that? And Joan Didion gave the perfect reportorial answer, which most people would, normal human beings would say is cold and unacceptable. She said, well, it's gold. That is the end of that's the decade, that's the year, that's the summer of love. That was it. And it's true. You don't come across that kind of gold too often.
Yeah.
Maybe she could have got the kid afterwards. I don't know if she did, but
yeah.
I don't know why I got off on that. Sorry.
No, it's fine. But we're talking about the description of things, and just to keep that thread going. And I believe this was in your book. By the way, everybody, the link for the book is right there. Make Me Commissioner. It's fantastic. And just anybody in your life who loves baseball, get them any Jane Leavy book or Jane Leavy book, and she'll love it, and he'll love it, and it'll be great. And what I always say, buy two, because that's the best way to support authors. So
thank you.
When I think about people who describe things,
when is this airing? Is this airing now?
Yeah, we're live. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. I found out that, and this is shocking and awful and really, really base of me, but do you know how many books you have to sell to get on the last place of the New York Times bestseller list for general nonfiction?
No, what is it?
I had no idea. This week, it's about 1,800.
Yeah.
To get numbers 15. My reaction was, hey, guys, come on, help me out.
Yeah, seriously. Hey, yeah, and this is
help me out. But
buy two.
Buy two. It's Christmas is coming,
Yeah,
but what was more appalling was that's all it takes, and that's national.
Yeah.
Oh my God! When we say people aren't reading,
yeah, it's tough. I remind people in my world, like if you get 10 people to reliably show up to your show each day, that's amazing. I mean, the Globetrotters have to work hard to put 2,000 people in a gym every night that they, these numbers aren't big because there's a lot of distractions, a lot of things. And I want to put a pin in that, come back to that, because this is part of our fan problem too, I think. But the description part, I want to get back to that, because we are, I think you had a moment about attention stats and how people are paying less and less attention and we're getting less and less human. We're having food delivered more than ever. All these things that take us out of our neighborhoods and away from these face-to-face chats. And you can be so nasty on X and just start off with, "You're an idiot." And you're like, I just said a rational thing like, "Hey, let's wait till the season is over before we decide who the MVP is." But we lose the opportunities for authors to amaze us. And Steinbeck's got some of my favorite quotes, but here's 5 words that he used to describe 2 things: his fly paper youth and star rattled sky. Like, these are just, it's just 5 words to tell you 2 totally different pictures. And I want to read the things that you guys write because I want my mind blown like that. And I sit there and just live with star rattled sky and see in my mind. It's wonderful. And baseball is so beautiful with words and how it works together, whether it's spoken like Van or written like you. We need more of that, not less. Unfortunately, it's hard to make money because 1,800 books is all you got to sell to get to the back end of the list.
Did you know that you can't pull fat? I was trying to describe, to explain to you guys, all the things that have led to this moment. It's pretty early in the book, and one of them I said you have a veritable conga line of overly buff people marching to and fro the major league roster and the IL,
Mm-hmm.
and then I wrote, if they were better off fat. You can't pull fat.
Yeah.
And I talked to Tom Glavine, who is pretty great, and in talking about pitching and conspiracy theories, actually. And he said, "Oh yeah, you know what Terry Pendleton said about that? He said we were better off fat." So then I had a really hard choice: do I take credit for the line or do I give it to him? So I gave it to him.
Yeah, I've heard Ozzie Guillen say that as well.
Oh,
And it's funny. No, but I don't know when he said it. So, that's the whole thing. There's the thing too, like, I don't remember when I first heard the term like intercostal strain, like we just said, "Oh, you hurt your rib cage," but it's all the time now. And there is something to be said for, look, the players are fantastic. They're all fit. You and I both remember like, "Oh, you can't lift weights, you'll get muscle bound." But now we've gotten rid of all of that. But also with that comes like pushing your body to its limit. And you're like, "I swung a bat and I hurt my ribs and I'm out for 3 months." 3 months for an intercostal strain all the time. That also is like it's the progress of the game, of course. The players have gotten better, but it's hard to be a fan of someone who's not going to be there when your team needs them.
I think you stole that from me.
Oh, did I? Oh, good.
Yes, you did. Yeah, I think I think that is a central problem, and I cast it in terms of pitching because there are so many injuries. The Dodgers and the Yankees have been vying all year for most pitchers placed on the injured list, and dollars, as Ron Washington would say, dollars sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
And it's not only terrible for the health of the pitchers. It's understandable why they've accepted, the hump up and throw 103 miles an hour max speed. Because they want to get paid, and who, in a sense, who blames them?
Right.
But it's not healthy. It's also the antithesis of Sandy Koufax walking away at age 30. And no, it turns out, he told me, Tommy John surgery would not have fixed his elbow. It's not what he had. Did not have torn UCL. But it's also unhealthy for the game. Because you can't root for guys who aren't there.
Yeah.
And the last year, the $1 billion in salary paid that the owners paid for injuries, for injured players, right? 2/3 of it were accounted for by bad elbows.
Yeah.
And I think when baseball lost its way is when it lost the stories that it could tell that no other sport could tell. And that really troubles me. I think people are, I remember matchups.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now somebody yesterday criticized me, said, "Oh, she's just another old curmudgeon who wants it to go back the way it was. And I very politely replied, if you still think I'm a curmudgeon after reading the book, I'll buy you a drink.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of ideas in here that are much more radical than things that MLB has already done.
Sure.
But figuring out a way to make its history relevant again, other than as a source of numbers to parse and use to create more equations, probably the last great matchup that I can think, pitching matchup that I can think of was Kershaw and Bumgarner, and it was 11 times that they faced each other, and it was and a matchup is a kind of relationship, whether it's ace versus ace, or pitching aces, or pitching ace versus slugger, and it goes on, if you're lucky, for series, it goes on for seasons, it goes on sometimes for decades, right? And Whitey Ford and Camilo Pascual is another one. But anyway, absent that, what story does a game tell?
Yeah.
Other than this won, this lost. You're completely removed from the humanity of it. And that's what's starting to trouble a lot of people. What happened to the human element? Where did it go?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't mind a little bit of replay, but I want it to be rare. And if Pete was commissioner, and I've got my own things I run my mouth about, but I've said for a long time, you got 30 seconds, MLB, to make a call. Otherwise, call stands. Like chop, chop, chop. Let's keep this thing moving. And by the way, the teams, you don't get to look real time. If you think there's a problem in the real time call, push the button immediately, or we're moving on. Because I don't want to hear. Yeah, I don't want that. Just make the call, and I don't mind if umpires miss calls. And look, and if it's close, and MLB's like, we need an extension. You get one extension per game. They've got a responsibility too to keep the game moving. And what I don't want is what NFL turned into, where I don't even know what a catch is anymore. Like, oh well, we zoomed in all the way in this close, and then we noticed that the ball didn't scrape the ground. You're like, oh my God, please! It's just called a touchdown.
Right.
Move on to the next thing.
Well, that's
humanity.
what Morgensword was talking about when he talked about the age of knowing everything. And it's, even the technology can lie, which angle are you looking from? Whose camera are you watching from? And what's more, it's not fun.
It's not fun.
I liked it much better when Earl Weaver kicked dirt on people. And Billy Martin went crazy, and Aaron Boone still does that now and again, which I find refreshing. It's the most personality he's got when he goes bozo. Every place that baseball has had a chance to ratify what made it different and delicious, they've turned the other way. Yeah, and they're going to do it with the challenge, the robo-ump too. I mean, I was kidding around with a friend of mine who's in the book, Pekko Hosoi, who created and co-founded the MIT Sports Analytics Lab, and this woman knows math really. And we are an unlikely duo for that reason. I got a 320 on my math GRE. Back in the day, they gave you 200 points for signing your name. Yeah. So. And she's one of these gifted people who can make it make sense to somebody like me. But she and I were talking about the robo-ump, and wouldn't it be fun? How about if we actually have the robo-ump standing there next to Nestor Shylock? Okay, I'm just picking him out of the past, and one ump goes this, and the other goes this, and then they could have a conversation between the robo and the human. It would be great. How far do you want to take it is the question.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny with the numbers too, because they measure, it's like when you write an academic paper, You are one thin thought through the whole paper, and you don't really, until the very end, you don't get to mess around with anything. Like, if this and this and this, then I think this is the truth. And that's all you get. And that's what happens when we start to get into the number thing. You measure one aspect of, like, right now we're trying to figure out like how good an outfielder somebody is. But if you play in Chicago, no field is impacted by wind more than that place. And I lived at Wrigley. I lived right across the street in right field on Sheffield. And you could see like balls would go out to Waveland all the time. But the Wrigley is huge in right field. Like, it just, balls don't go over onto the street, onto Sheffield. It just doesn't happen very often. And so why? And do we see that? That's not part of the measurement of how good an outfielder is. And
Well,
so,
they do park numbers, and adjusted for
yeah,
dimension and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
yeah,
doesn't it all level out at the end? I mean,
yeah,
that would be my argument. So
sure,
say somebody screws up, he gets it wrong. Okay, he gets it wrong that time. The umpires used to make good by giving you a call later.
yeah,
I mean, they knew when they screwed up, but
right,
now they're under such duress and under such a microscope. I thought they would have hated the robo umping, and Jim Joyce, who I spoke to at great length and who knows something about what a bad call and a wrong call
right,
do. I said, oh no, they'll like it. They'll like it because they don't want to get criticized.
right.
And so,
Mm.
I don't like getting criticized either, but I don't have a robo ump in my kitchen for when I put the wrong amount of salt in.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I want to get back to the Jim Joyce thing, but I wanted to add some humanity and some color into the wind at Chicago. I was flying home, because I lived across the street from Wrigley, and it was so windy that day. My daughter, we're on the airplane, and the plane is just dropping like that as the wind. We are fighting the wind, and she is a little kid, and so she giggles and goes, "Daddy, are we gonna die?" And then everybody in the airplane's like, "Ah!" because they thought that the kid was, pressured or something. Meanwhile, Eli Marrero, who plays catcher, sometimes center field, in Tony La Russa's crazy world, is under a fly ball in center field, and he blows his knee out. It's so windy, you
Oh,
know. And so, like, this is the magic that we could be talking about. You talked about Bartman in your book. My buddy Gary O'Reilly and his dad Gary O'Reilly were right behind Bartman. He's in every Bartman picture. What no one ever talks about is that Alex Gonzalez had a ready-made ground ball double play ball, like the next pitch, and he boffed it. It was never Bartman's fault, but that's the story, right? And that's the greatness about it. You could say, "Do you realize there was a double play ball that came a minute later?" Like, no, I didn't know that. And we lose these things because we don't. We lose the stories that Eli Marrero blew out his knees fielding. It was so wait, what? And these are the great things that I think you and I are looking for more of that within, like, how we talk about the game.
well, yes, exactly. And somebody told me the other day, who was it that he took his 4-year-old daughter to a game, and they
Yeah.
got to maybe she was older, but they got to the 4th inning, and she looked at her dad and said, "Daddy, when does the game start?" It's like, oh, okay, we're in
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is a way to be truthful, faithful to the past,
Mhm.
and be progressive at the same time. Um, you know, Kids interact with the world differently than you and I did, and that's just not going away. And
Right.
Janet Marie Smith, who designs and has been influential in the design of and redesign of Camden Yards and Fenway Park and Petco Park and Dodger Stadium, it deals with this conundrum every day because you have to live in the present and accommodate to the way people watch baseball in the
Yeah.
present, but without losing track of the past. And she does an incredible balancing act with that. It's really, really hard to do. But that said, Peko Hosoi and I decided as commissioner that one of my first jobs would be, first of all, to let all kids age 10 and under,
Right.
accompanied by an adult, in free. Because as Mike Haupert, one of the people in the book who's an economist who helped me with all the numbers, said, we're dying. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mike. But we are. And if baseball wants to have a next generation of fans, they better get off their stick and start
Hmm.
helping to create it. So,
Yeah.
and what a PR coup that
Yeah.
would be. When's the last time Major League Baseball had a PR coup, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pecco and I go to her and I say, can you design a handheld game for, a phone where a kid can interact with what's going on in the field? Telling kids to put down their phone is useless
Right.
unless you're blocking out Wi-Fi and cellular in Major League Baseball. It's useless. So she took that as a challenge. She runs the MIT Sports Analytics Lab, and she and a handful of her, every one of them is smarter than the next students, created a game called Beat the Bot that we tested at a Cape Cod League baseball game in the beginning of August 2024. And it was kind of crazy because they had to come out from Boston and Cape Cod Friday traffic and da, 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 da. But even with the last minute, even with just one announcement on the rickety, PA system, even with just a few flyers posted on telephone poles and things, we got 80 kids.
Yeah.
And kids were running around saying, Mom, I need your phone. I have to beat the bot. I have to beat the bot. And one little guy goes up to Pecco. He's very little. And he says, is Froggy Pants okay for a password? And I said, yes, Froggy Pants is just fine. And then he says, so we can play now? And she said, well, no, we're going to start in the 5th inning. And then she realizes the kid is too young to understand innings.
Yeah.
And so she says, look at the scoreboard. So this becomes, for a great teacher, a teachable moment. And she shows him the scoreboard and where there's, numbers 1 through 9 and how we're going to get to 5 and 6, but we're not there yet. And the kid gets it, he goes, I have to wait.
Mm.
And imagine the difference, a kid being excited, and depressed because he has to wait and kids whose parents were ready to pick up and leave after, 4.5 innings could not go because their kids would not leave until they beat the bot.
Right.
So there are things baseball can do.
Yeah.
They just have to think out of that proverbial box of theirs.
Yeah, there's because of people I know, I got to go to a very exclusive access to the Lakers game, and ended up in the club under the seats with Jeannie Buss's, holding court being Jeannie Buss and whatnot. And I was able to bring a couple of young people in my life, and 2 of them are fanatic Lakers fans. They couldn't dream of this access was so exclusive that the ushers didn't know where we were supposed to go. It was crazy. And so we had this wonderful experience down in this club that we're in with Jeannie Buss. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio, Toby Maguire. Like really, like this is an amazing thing. I don't care that much because I'm an angry middle-aged man. But they were just blown away. And they both bought Lakers jerseys. They were already huge Lakers fans. They're like, this has been so they bought Lakers jerseys that night, and they like are always talking about it. And this was during this past season, but they are still talking about it. And they will always talk about these things. And I think the owners in Major League Baseball need to try to cycle people through these magic moments that they couldn't have any other way. It's one thing to, for sure, like get money from the high-end clients and do all that, but create a little bit of space to make those moments magical. Because when you're a little kid, it's easy. It's like that green field and you're hooked and everything. But when you're 25 or 29 or 32 or whatever, get those folks something special so that they will always remember it. And then Pete would say, also encourage consumption of more of the game and give something back, like Camel Bucks back in the old Camel Bucks days. And like you get yourself a starter jacket, go to a minor league game, do this, bring 4 friends to it and accomplish these things over 2 seasons. Here's your $80. Who cares? $80 jacket. Like these people are going to go out and they're going to have more access to the game. Pete would think that's a good way to market the game.
Yeah, I think so too. And I had Michael Haupert, who is a professor of economics at University of Wisconsin lacrosse. I said, what would it cost to let kids in age 10 and under in for free? And so he took Cubs numbers from 2023. And I think, believe it or not, I haven't memorized my own book, but if a kid got grandpa, mom, whoever bought the kid a small hot dog, a small soda,
right,
some other edible thing, and a cap, it would have ended up costing the Cubs $4 million for the entire year
Yeah.
to do that, as opposed to, as Michael pointed out, because he's a big Cubs fan, paying Jason Hayward $21 million to play for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to say that $4 million is meaningless. There are a whole lot of people in the world to whom that would be, an unbelievable amount of money. I'm one of them. Hi, Betty. But it's chump change, even to the poorest baseball owner. And just think about the swaths of empty stands.
Mm-hmm.
And Major League Baseball has surveys that show that young fans in baseball are made when they're really young. It's not like football and basketball. This starts really young. And so, again, you need to get them in the ballpark, and you need to get them there early.
Yeah.
I went to this MIT sports analytics conference.
Yes.
And it was, I didn't understand a word of the algorithms of just okay. And I went to a seminar on making fans. How do you make a fan today? And it was interesting. It was all women talking about it. There were a lot of women executives there. I was really impressed. And a lot of them were wearing fuck me shoes. So I was really, I was not. But how do you make, well, you have to have so many, there's a word in the marketing world that I can't summon because I hate that language so much, for how many times you have to contact somebody. You can't say contact, right?
Right.
Touches or some such.
Yeah. Impressions or whatever it is.
Impressions, right. And finally, one of the women said, well, what it comes down to is the thing that really matters is you have to go to a live event with somebody you love. How many millions of dollars did they spend to figure that out?
I know.
Right?
Seriously, yeah.
It's like, oh, that's unusual. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Couples that go spend twice as much as single ticket buyers. It's like, yeah. My father's been dead since 2003. My father, who grew up on Coogan's Bluff behind Polo Grounds, and whose father was a bookie and a rum runner and serviced the Polo Grounds, thus enabling my father to be the water boy for the 1927 New York Football Giants. Some people think other and more important things happened in 1927, but they would be wrong. Right.
And he left me home and took my sister to one of the Dodgers' last games in Brooklyn because I was too young.
Yeah.
I'm still angry at him, and he's been dead a long time.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of funny stories like that. The game is wonderful if we allow it, if we keep the humanity in it. You do a great job of explaining this, and I love your survey of the baseball marketplace, because there's a lot of great things happening. And you're right, it's not all bad news. There's incredible play and everything, but yeah, we are struggling with. So one of the things that I wanted to get into is, and this is just me looking at baseball in general. Half of the fan bases are below average. That's just how numbers work, right? We hate this, but it's just true. And so, how does Major League Baseball?
Average? What average?
Well, whatever average is. Like if the average fan base that attends this many games and spends this much money, there'll be some. It's a bell curve, right? It's all going to go together. We kind of make fans a sacred cow. But how do you turn fans in and get them to show up? Now, maybe the bottom churns, right? And so it's not always, but they're, us A's fans, we've been pretty low grade in terms of compared to the Cubs. Oh my gosh, A's fans never drew 3 million games or 3 million fans in a year. So how do you take these more problematic markets? Miami, how on earth do you fix that? Like, there's no amount of free jackets that's going to fix you in Miami because they don't need any jackets, right? And so I wonder about that. And then to be fair to the A's fans that, my family and everything, when you struggle to invest in a team, even if the decisions are bad, like the Mets, look, I always use the Mets as an example. I talk about the A's, like they never spend any money. I'm like, well, the Mets spend money and they haven't won since '86. So we don't know how to fix this as
And
an
the Yankees
organization.
not since 2009.
I know, right? Yeah, like they talk about the evil empire Yankees. They won one World Series, and it was really kind of at the end of that window. Giambi never won that World Series with those guys, and so yeah, it's tough. We have these perceptions, and I think this is my theory. I think that analytics, or stats, whatever we want to call it, I think that drives people away from the game because we're so avoiding risk, like the matchups that we don't get. I mean, thinking about like Dave Stewart and Clemens, it's the second inning in Boston, and LaRusse has got the infield in because this is going to be a one-run game. Like, man, those are great games, right? I know nothing happens, but there's all kinds of things happening. We're struggling to figure out how to crack the market. San Diego's development into being a prime market is not the norm. It's more like
The weather.
Kansas City. Well, the weather, yeah, but Kansas City was the prime market, and then it hasn't been in 30 years. And I don't know that they can ever get that magic back that they had, when they first started, all the way through until about 90. They were really just a fantastic town for baseball, and I don't know that they can get back to that.
Well, I mean, honestly, then you're getting into not the analytics, but the economics. And, baseball has a real problem. And as a former union member of the, newspaper guild, it pains me to say this, but the players and the owners both have created this situation. I've venerated, and I'm, Marvin Miller, Hosanna. I wish he'd run I wish he had taken over the newspaper guild. And what he did in creating free agency, he did not just for baseball, but other people have free agency because of him.
Right.
But there wasn't the kind of money that there is now when he created it. The problem is that the owners sabotage their own argument by being venal and horrible, like the owners, like John Fisher, like Bob Nutting, like the guys in Miami, Stu Sternberg, who take the competitive balance money that they are given in order to try to even the scales a bit, that they are mandated by the collective bargaining agreement to spend on players and keep it. Yeah. So it's very easy to understand why the players don't trust management. It's baked in. It's institutional. They were ripped off for decades, and accepting something less than the complete free agency they have now is going to be a really hard sell. But on the other hand, Roy Eisenhardt, who ran the A's, he was a good friend of mine, said baseball has several intractable problems. One is that he said April, I would say it's a little later, let's say June, half the teams are out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you going to go? Why are you going to watch a national telecast with him on it?
Right.
So there's that. And there's the incredible amount of inventory and in terms of both dates and seats. So it's not like day games at Yankee Stadium in 1964 were selling out either.
No, right.
So it's got to be, they have to cooperate if they want to change this. And, people say, oh, it's like the Democrats and the Republicans. It's worse. It's pretty bad. And for Rob Manfred, my predecessor, to go cameras in February of this year and announce at the beginning of spring training when hope, is eternal. Your team hasn't lost yet. Everybody is 0-0 in the win-loss column. And to announce, and oh, by the way, for sure, there's going to be a lockout on December 2nd, 2026, when the collective bargaining agreement is over. And really, it's not such a bad thing. It's kind of the new norm, and it's because it's like using a 22 as opposed to a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
And how is that a way to market a game?
No, it's bad.
Somebody explain to me
No,
how that is going to encourage somebody to get involved in any
sure.
meaningful way with baseball.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% on the money with this. Like when I think about your plan, and we've heard people talk about letting all the kids in for free and everything. You give me that, you give me, I'm the Cubs sales director. I'll sell that in 5 minutes. I'll go down to Morton Salt and be like, make these the Morton Salt kids. You guys buy any ticket for any kid that shows up, and then, or we'll give it to them for free and you guys sponsor it for $10 million. Oh, I just turned a profit, right? Like this is, some of these things aren't that hard, but they think, it appears that the owners and the league think so short-sightedly about what's valuable and how to get as much possible out of it. And it's a business, okay? Some of that has to happen, but I just don't understand. Like I buy maybe, and I try to spend my money with the team. Like wherever I go, and I go to a lot of games, I try to spend money there so that the team can do all right. Even if you're buying money from the franchisee who's selling shirts, whatever, I'm still trying to spend money in the game. And I buy one beer because the beers are $22. I'm just not going to drink 14, 20. I don't need to drink 14 beers anymore, but I'd spend more money if they were a little less greedy. I feel like I'm getting ripped off. When I go and I buy a $18 taco, I'm like, it's a goddamn taco. And it's cold by the time I sit
Not a
down.
really good taco either.
Yeah, no, it's not. Sometimes the food is all right, but for the most part, it's mediocre
You
across
know what
most
the
places.
smartest ballpark would be?
Hmm,
Just go back to ballpark, dogs and pretzels and Dixie cups. Remember Dixie cups?
sure,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
let's go back to basics.
yeah,
Sushi.
yeah.
Babe Ruth would be turning over in his grave.
I know.
Sushi, right?
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, one of the ideas that I have is to change the broadcasting. I know we have a lot of problems with the regional sport networks, but also there's a guy like me. I may put together $10,000 or whatever it is. I need to know that there's money going to come back, an ROI. But maybe I'd start my own micro broadcasting network, and I would broadcast whatever game it is, and have my own game of the week. I think that there's a market where if they democratize the broadcast rights, they could bring in a lot of revenue and sell ads like with passionate fans who are there. I mean, it's great to have the old voices and all that stuff. That's all fine. But I just think that there's a bigger market there. And like in LA, if you don't have Spectrum, you can't watch the Dodgers. That doesn't do anybody any good. It's hard to sell ads to not all of LA.
I have a house up in Truro, Massachusetts, which is how and why I got so involved with the Cape
Yeah,
Cod League. Why Betty the dog is a mascot for the Orleans Firebirds, who used to be Cardinals until
right,
Major League Baseball decided, in its great wisdom, that they couldn't be Cardinals unless they sold only
right.
licensed merch.
Yeah,
And, so most of the teams changed their names in order to not go crosswise with MLB. Um, the Mariners, it turns out, didn't have to change their name because they preceded the Seattle Mariners.
mm,
Anyway,
yeah,
you know, I was there for a Yankee Boston series. I couldn't watch it. Now
mm,
I have subscriptions to every service that exists.
yeah.
There, I couldn't watch it not on the computer, nothing. And
That's the worst.
let's make baseball accessible again. Let's make
Yeah,
baseball findable again.
yeah,
They put so many roadblocks in the way of being a fan. You get so disgusted at the
yeah,
effort you have to make to watch a game
yeah,
that it, you know only fools like us are going to make that much of an effort.
yeah. I had the Dodger subscription 30, and then I travel a decent bit. I'm in California, but if I was here at my dad's house by Santa Cruz area, I wouldn't be able to watch a Dodger game, even though I paid for it. And I understand that a couple of games are going to be blacked out, whatever, that's fine. But you're going to charge me full freight whether I can see a game or not. Oh, come on, that's so I stopped. I turned it off. I'm glad to spend money on baseball, and I went, I can't do it. And so I turned it off, and I won't probably get it again because I don't need that. And then you cannot listen to the radio broadcast for free on MLB.com. And they should just give that away. Just let us listen. Because how many people are going to do it anyhow? Just make it accessible. Maybe someone accidentally listens to, you know, whoever on the radio call. I don't know who, I can't think
Don
of a radio
Miller.
team. Yeah. Right.
John,
Just accidentally, yeah, listen to John Miller, right? And then you're like, hey, this is actually pretty cool because I'm doing my thing, because I don't have a radio. I'm out in San Francisco, so I can't listen to the Giants, where I'm at. But man, it'd be great to know I could push that button and then do that. And
I
then they
also,
don't really sell ads for that stuff anyhow. Go ahead.
I also think it's a fallacy to think that, maybe when blackouts started and, territorial rights and stuff like that, maybe it really did deter people from coming to the game. I do not believe that's the case anymore.
Yeah.
People have many more reasons not to go to the game.
Sure.
And they get so pissed off, they're not going to try again later.
Yeah. Of all the things you put forward in the thing, like let's say that they do make you commissioner, like what's the day one priority for you? What are you changing right away?
There's 3 priorities for me, and lots of corollary solutions. Kids 10 and under get in free.
Okay.
I mean, not only is it smart to do it in terms of creating a new fan base, when is the last time Major League Baseball had any good publicity? I mean, as an institution,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, okay, they're serious.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, it would end up paying for itself, or
Yeah.
sponsors would be running to subsidize it.
Yeah.
I hate the gambling. I hate the gambling. And again, remember, my grandfather was a bookie and a rum runner. I'm not moralistic about it.
Yeah. Right.
But I think it's asking for trouble. And I think you can point to Clase, who is on the suspended list, the relief pitcher from Cleveland, and his other cohort in the locker room, and things that happened last year, people who were suspended, and they say, oh, well, we can catch them and da 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 da. But you know what else is happening? Players are getting death threats.
Yeah.
And that is no joke.
Right.
Something not good is going to come out of this. So once the Supreme Court decided in all its Republican wisdom that gambling was a right and states' rights, and you can do it wherever you want, however you want, blah, 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 blah. I suppose Major League Baseball didn't have any choice. But baseball, unlike football and basketball, had this long history of breastbeating self-righteously. We are the sport that doesn't tolerate betting. Oops, changed our minds.
Yeah.
Because there's money involved. And I think that was horrific. But again, PR value while doing something, make chicken salad out of chicken's poop.
Mm-hmm.
Use the gambling money to support urban youth academies in every major league city. There are 6 of them so far, so that American Black inner city kids who do not have a place to play baseball and can't afford it. It's become a country club sport. It's the most expensive of the top 3 kids sports now because of Perfect Game and the showcases and the travel teams and the whatever. Use the money for a good. Mm-hmm. I'm sure. I mean, they're projected to make $1 billion. So I mean, it didn't cost that much. John Blake for the Rangers, an old buddy of mine from Baltimore, told me it just didn't cost that much to put it together. It's not a huge expense. And again, it's doing the right thing and making good on what they celebrate every April 15th on Jackie Robinson annual Welcome to Major League Baseball Day. It's a very hollow occasion as far as I'm concerned. Or as Dusty Baker said, it's BS.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of great things to think about, ways to make the game more exciting. Formula One, you have to change tires and use 2 different tire compounds. I would love to see something like that in baseball where like, hey, we're using the red ball today. Not red in terms of like the whole color of it, but just like it's the red dot ball and it's juiced. It's juicy. You have the green one for the whatever, and you have to use each ball during the season, a deadened ball, whatever it is. And maybe there's some strategy in that. And that would be kind of interesting. I'm not talking big differences, Jane. I'm just saying like,
yeah, I mean, that doesn't appeal.
Well, they do it, and they do it now. I mean, they control the ball.
Says, quit trying to make every ball exactly the same. It's not going to happen as long as human beings are making them.
Right.
Um, and let the variability be built into the system. When you say, okay, you know, baseball, it's a game of adjustments. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the best people to make the adjustments. The third thing I was going to say that
Sorry. Yes.
is the pitching. I mean, the pitching is a nightmare, and
Yeah.
and so I would profoundly reconfigure, you know, the old-fashioned idea of what a pitching staff is.
Sure.
And I just read last night what Davey Johnson told me about his pitching staff and why nobody ever got hurt on his pitching staff. And the thing that he described is basically what Warren Spahn told Jim Cott he did. But realistically speaking, they're spending so much money on destroyed pitching elbows. Instead of spending all that money on rehabbing, have more pitchers, you know, available to a manager who by, you know, the end of July is, you know, like, okay, which of my guys not going to collapse on the mound first, right? I mean, they're toast. It's, you know, filling that many, getting that many outs. It used to be, oh, just 21 outs, you know, it's gotten insane. So make it fluid. You know, why should your yesterday's starter be counted among the roster of pitchers available? He's not going to pitch. He's not going to pitch the next day or the day after. You know, he may have to do a side session, right? But he's not going to be pitching. So have, you know, a healthy scratch list, as in hockey, right? And let them switch them up according to who's most pooped or overused. And try to take some pressure off. And meanwhile, so I'm basically increasing the pitching staff to 15 or 16. It's currently 13. And then meanwhile, reduce the number of pitchers available during each game. My goal is 11, but okay, make it 12 for a year or two, and then, you know, massage it in. And if you get it back to 11, what that's going to do is it's going to force general managers and people to draft people who can actually pitch as opposed to throw. And you tell them, no, I don't want you to throw max heave, you know, every pitch. I want you to learn to pitch. And I mean, that's what all the bioethics people and all the biomechanical people have been trying to say. There is Glenn Fleissig, who is the guy who does most of the ball testing for Major League Baseball at the American Sports Medicine Institute, has a proposal where if you increase, and he tested it, he's done some testing already, if you increase the size of the ball by 5% and make it an ounce heavier, it actually takes an enormous amount of torque off this little Tommy John elbow ligament. So I have to call him later and ask him whether he's gotten funding for the next step, because that's a reasonable thing to do, as opposed to moving the mound inch by inch until their arms, you know, until their arms adjust.
Or making the battering box bigger, you know, so you can just stand further back if you chose to, or if you want to stand up front, you know, maybe something like that. The other thing I was going to say to that is that I'm not a stick guy, more of a carrot guy. So if your stat, like 1,600 innings to get through a baseball season ish, right? So if you have 4 or more guys get above 180 innings, I'm not trying to tear arms apart, but incentivize some longevity so that they do give. There's no reason for Paul Skeens at 60 pitches to come out in the 5th inning like you did the other day. Like, that's just silly, right? You know, so, and this is like, how can you be an ace if you can't say, follow me and let's go, I'm going to put the team on my back, you know? And so I'd like to see some of that. I know that's the kind of pie in the sky, but some kind of form of how do we keep guys on the mound, disincentivize that 3rd time through penalty. Like, let's, and you and I both agree on this, let's see that gunslinger stand on the mound and say, all right, here we go. These last 9 outs belong to me. And by the way, point in there and go, stay the goddamn hill in the back, my goddamn game, you know? And that's, I'd like to see more of that, where the guy, if you're going to put the guy's career in the line, then let him make the call and say, this is my game. I'm not coming out. I'm going to get these guys out. And if I don't get someone, I'll come get me. But for right now, no, I'm going to stay
It
out here.
requires allowing the natural competitiveness
Yeah.
of players to flourish, as opposed to saying, you're done.
Yeah.
And it requires athletes and executives who recognize that the obligation is not just to the owner of the team to win, but it is equally to the obligation to entertain.
Yeah.
And that's what they've lost. I mean, Bill James used an analogy which I thought was brilliant. He said it's like if you have a painting on the wall, and and it's in the sun, and 10 years go by, it still looks the same. 20 years, okay, it looks pretty much the same. 30 years, it's a pale imitation of itself.
Right.
Well, that's what happened to baseball.
Yeah.
Is it aged and changed and faded without? It's not that it didn't change. It did change, obviously, but it didn't change in a concerted, organized, and thoughtful way.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. It took actually a little bit more than an hour from you, but I was having such a good time. I appreciate you indulging me on that. But anything you want to say in closing, other than everybody go buy the book?
Buy 2.
Buy 2. That's what we're going to do. All right, stand by. I'll come say goodbye to you, everybody else. I'll see you tomorrow.